So let's dive into the mix now. Should we or shouldn't we? Should we bring earmarks back out of retirement? A Bloomberg opinion piece put it this way, quote, think of earmarks as local benefits inserted into bills to buy more votes in Congress. That sounds bad, but in a fraught, polarized time, it could be exactly what the U.S. government needs. In essence, earmarks give congressional leaders more control over individual members. All those members are the ones holding up bills sometimes pending before Congress right now. So I spoke with Douglas Farrar. He worked for several members of Congress. Also, he's now at the Aspen Institute. He says behind the scenes, pretty much everyone likes earmarks. They work like the gold dragons in Game of Thrones, winning over the opposition and leading to victory. Earmarks get a bad rap. There's no doubt about that. But you kind of have the idea that they're not all completely bad.
You need to provide incentives for people to work together, and nothing is more competitive than Congress right now. Very partisan, very tribal, as we all know. Earmarks, in my view, are the coin by which you can trade and agree to bipartisan pieces of legislation.
That kind of brings Game of Thrones to mind, where the coin of the realm, you know,
you
get the army on your side if you have the money.
That's right.
Okay.
Well, you see it in Game of Thrones. I mean, there's, a lot of deal making, and members of Congress don't have much to trade when all it is ideology.
You can't incentivize people to get on board with you in the same way.
And especially with regards to the budget. I mean, agreeing to a budget, agreeing to funding for a single year now has become something that is wrapped in immigration policy, for example, or in healthcare policy. When you are able to direct spending, each member is able to direct some spending back to their district, there's huge incentive to leave the super partisan issues out of it, pass something that everyone can mostly agree to. Everyone walks home and says, I helped build this library, I helped build this school. Earmarks represent, even at their height, less than 1% of overall discretionary spending, which excludes Social Security, Medicare, everything like that. When you factor mandatory spending in, it's less than 0.01% at their worst. So not a huge expenditure by the government, contrary to what most people might say who oppose them.
I wonder what the decision makers, what the policymakers and influencers are saying about earmarks behind the scenes.
You saw in the House Rules Committee hearing about it just a couple weeks ago that a lot of lawmakers on both sides of the aisle were much more willing to say earmarks, if they're done properly, can be a good thing. So I think almost all, there are members out there like Senator Flake and Senator McCaskill and others who are very strong opponents of earmarks, but the huge majority on both sides of the aisle, big decision makers in Congress, like earmarks because, after all, they like doing their congressional duty and directing federal spending to their districts or their states.
Here's the irony for me, is that you ask anybody, are you for pork barrel spending, for earmarks? Almost everyone's going to say no. If you ask people, are you for improving infrastructure? Almost everyone's going to say yes.
Right.
And most of the time, an earmark is for infrastructure.
Earmarks on their own are often lauded by local press or even statewide press, but earmarks, broadly speaking, are viewed as corrupt. And I think it's up to lawmakers who want to bring earmarks back to make that case to the American public. And I think there's a really strong case to be made on behalf of earmarks.
In the end, what this essentially does is puts those decisions in the hands of very, very fewer people who are going to decide, I'm at the top of this bureaucracy, and here's where the money's going.
Members of Congress, when they stopped the process of earmarking in 2011, didn't stop going after federal funding for their projects in their districts. What this created was a thing called zombie earmarks or shadow earmarks, where members of Congress and senators call up the deputy undersecretary of assistant of whatever of the executive agency and said, really, I need you to send money to this project. It's really important to me. Now, nothing is more sort of back room, smoke-filled than phone calls that aren't really being recorded. That is key if you wanted to bring earmarks back, because right now there's no transparency at all.